Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, brought to you by our friends over at Greaves Insurance. Protecting your assets starts with a company that you can count on. So whether it's auto, homeowners, flood boaters, or business insurance, there's nobody better in the business to work with than the great people over at Greaves Insurance. For more information, go to their website, briargreavesinsurance.com, or give them a call at 813-876-4166. That's 813-876-4166. It is a Wednesday edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Hello to everybody that is just filing into the comments and the chats as we get today's episode rocking and rolling. A little bit of the calm before the storm with the Titans coming into town tomorrow, as the Bucs will have a joint training camp practice hosting the Titans. And then, of course, they'll go to battle in a preseason game on Saturday. So Bucs were in shorts and shoulder pads today, but still a lot of action that went on and also some interesting press conferences after. So let's break it all down today. I'm your host, Matt Matera, joined with me a great friend of the program, a colleague at PewterReport.com, and he's been in person for the last 2 days at Bucs training camp, and he'll be there again tomorrow. Pewter Report's Josh Capo returns to the Pewter Report podcast. Hello, Josh. Thank you for joining. How are we doing?
Hey, Matt. I am doing fantastic because I've got to see live football over the last 2 days, and that just makes me happy. So football season is upon us. Training camp has been really fun to experience, and I'm excited to break down yet another practice here with you today.
Yes, having you here makes all of us happy. So thank you for gracing us with your presence. Let's get right into it. This will cover a little bit of yesterday as well, but you being up close and personal, front and center, watching these Tampa Bay Buccaneers, what are some of the things that have really stood out to you over the last 2 days while the Bucs get rocking and rolling in Tampa?
Yeah, I think the three things that kind of stand out, you and I talked a little bit about it on one of our reels yesterday. Emeka Egbuka looks the part. I got a chance to write an article about that I think came out earlier today. The training camp practices just really reinforcing all of the awesome traits that we saw in kind of his pre-draft profile. That's continued to translate. It just doesn't seem like he's had much of a learning curve moving from the college to the pro level. We heard actually one of the press conferences that we got today even mentioned that, saying that, you know, this person's new to the team, and they immediately saw number 9 out there, and he's like, whoa, this guy looks different. So that was really, really cool to hear from somebody I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later in the episode. And Benjamin Morrison, somebody who I wasn't as high on pre-draft, but getting to see him live up close and personal yesterday during practice, I think it's going to be one where I'm happy to be wrong about when it all shakes out a couple years down the line. So those were two that really stood out to me. Jacob Parrish and Jamal Dean were making plays in the secondary today. That was a lot of fun to watch. And then just right now, I'd say the defensive line has been winning a decent amount against the offensive line over the 2 days of practice that I've had a chance to see.
So Teddy Bridgewater was the one that you were talking about with Emeka Egbuka, and so funny that he thought he was a tight end, and you know what's funny too is he kind of like went at. Now I had asked him about like his overall thoughts on like the talent of the team. So yes, Emeka Egbuka is part of the talent of the team, but the fact that Teddy Bridgewater was like, who the hell is this guy? Wait, what? He was their first round pick and everything like that. Was so cool to see. Also, Kay Adams, host of the Kay Adams show previously on Good Morning Football, she was here today as well, and she was posting a bunch of clips and stuff like that. It was very funny to see her say that Mike Evans and Levante David are vampires because they still look ageless and so. Yep. And yet at the same time, Emeka Egbuka looks like a 10-year veteran, who has been here for quite a while. So, great to see from Emeka Egbuka. And I think what's so cool, too, and maybe you noticed this today, is they're getting Egbuka with a lot of people involved in different ways as well. Like, they really, as much as they want to be more vertical this year, I mean, they spent a lot of time today, like, kind of working on screen short passes, getting those one-on-one opportunities for guys, or those mismatches, if you will. And it feels like Emeka Egbuka is going to be a big part of that. Of just, hey, yeah, he's a great route runner. Todd Bowles has really complimented him on that throughout training camp. But at the same time, if we just get the ball in this guy's hands, he's going to go and really do the rest. I also think it's not a surprise that your guy Sterling Shepard has been calling him Mini Chris.
Yep. Yeah, that Chris Godwin comp follows him so much. And it was something I think that's been very obvious to anybody who watches his game, which was really cool. It's going back to what you were talking about in terms of like Mike and Levante. Tom Brady finished his career well into his 40s in Tampa Bay. Spanish explorers spent hundreds of years searching for the fountain of youth in Florida. And it looks like, hundreds of years later, they found it with the Advent Health Training Center. That's been really cool to watch, because I do think that the team's going to need to lean into Egbuka a little bit at the beginning of the season. Jason Light provided an update yesterday, and it was kind of a no news, I guess is good news type of thing with Godwin. There's still no ETA for his return. We've got the first preseason game coming up here later this week. So you've got to start thinking that there's a chance that Chris Godwin will start the season on the PUP list.
Yeah.
And that gives the opportunity for Egbuka and Jalen McMillan to get on the field together without having to kind of divvy up snaps. They'll both have plenty of opportunities.
If you did find the fountain of youth, what age are you putting yourself to?
I joke a lot about my age relative to some of our other Pewter reporters, you, Matt, and you, Bailey, and Adam. I don't think I would try and stick to it. Like I've actually enjoyed the aging process. I've enjoyed becoming a dad and watching my kids grow up. And for me, I think that there is something peaceful to the process of moving through life.
All right, interesting. I go with 25 for that. But I respect it nonetheless. Back on track with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Really, one of the big stories specifically today was Jamal Dean, who you just mentioned a moment ago. Had 2 interceptions, including a pick 6 off of Connor Bazelak today. So it did happen off of the 3rd string or 4th string quarterback, depending on how we look at this QB room. But then also made a really great play towards the end of practice. We were standing right behind the end zone. It was a 2-point conversion situation, so you had to go all or nothing, really, in the situation. But he got the interception off of Baker Mayfield. And it's funny because throughout training camp, Josh, everybody else has been making plays. Jacob Parrish, Kendall Vildor, Bryce Hall, who we spoke to today. The 2 guys that have still been making plays, but the 2 guys who were not on the interception sheet were Zion McCollum and Jamal Dean. And Zion certainly has been doing a lot of great stuff. He's been battling Mike Evans, and that's been a lot of fun. But everybody seemed to be pretty angry in terms of, well, here comes Jamal Dean again, and no interceptions again, and this is what we're going to see from Jamal Dean. How important do you think that is for his overall, status on this team in terms of, he's fighting with Benjamin Morrison when he's available and Zion to, keep his starting cornerback job. And I don't think it's a guarantee by any means that he's going to be the starting center this year, starting cornerback this year, just based on how they've rotated guys in and out.
Yeah, I think the Bucs have been one of the more open and transparent teams when you talk to them about priorities and what they're looking for in their team, especially in the offseason, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times with Jason Light, Todd Bowles, when we get opportunities to speak with them as they're shaping the roster in, March, April, into the summer, they may not like come right out and say big banners, this is what we're looking to do, but they're also fairly straightforward. I've never known them to obfuscate or to kind of really hide their priorities. And Todd Bowles spoke very openly throughout this entire offseason process that they've got to create more turnovers. So I think it is important for Jamal to show that he can create some more turnovers, and he was able to do that today. So I think that this was an important step to say, I can keep up with these other players on one of your priorities. One of the things that his head coach has openly spoken about as a way for the defense to level up. If I remember correctly, he was also a part of the peanut punch on Ibuka, right? I think that was Dean. So that was kind of 3 turnovers that he created today, which I think goes a long way to helping him hold that spot.
I thought it was I enjoy Jamal Dean so much for how candid he is when we speak to him in press conferences and when we talk to him in the locker room and stuff like that. Because, we had him recently late last week, and he was like, yeah, I know, I get it. Like, I have to be better. I have to do this better. I have to do that better. And I think he's pretty self-aware at this point what is being said about him. And he's not like upset over it. He's not angry or anything like that. He's certainly using it as motivation. But he's aware, like, okay, the knock on him is that he gets injured a lot and that he doesn't hold on to the football. And yeah, there are young guys in this room that are eventually going to be, the future starters of this team in a couple of seasons from now. So I respect him being so self-aware while also not, relinquishing his spot at the same time. I am curious to get your thoughts about this, Josh, when it comes to Jamal Dean, because he had another statement. Now, Jamal Dean is one of about, at this point, 7 or 8 players that were on the the Super Bowl winning team from 2020 and still on this current team. If I have it right, it's in no particular order: Jamel, Levante, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Anthony Nelson, Tristan Wirfs, Antoine Winfield Jr. Yeah, correct. Vita Vea. And I think that's about it. Maybe I'm missing one other, but that's pretty much it right there. And he went on to say, anyway, Jamal Dean went on to say that he thinks that this 2025 team can be better than that Super Bowl winning 2020 team. So, Josh, I'll ask you, do you agree or disagree with what Jamal Dean had to say there?
I want to be careful about language choice. He said it can be, correct?
Can be, yeah.
Then yes, I agree with him. I think there are still some very wide potential outcomes, obviously, for some of these younger players that they're hoping to lean into. But I do think that is definitely possible. They have some high ceilings. Morrison, Ibuka, some of the second-year guys like Graham Barton, Yaya Diaby entering his 3rd year. He's still very much an arrow up. And then just some of like the addition of Hassan Reddick gives the team an elite or borderline elite edge rusher that they really haven't had since Shaq Barrett left. So yeah, I can agree with that there is an opportunity for this to be a better roster. I think one of the things that has to be factored in there is the offensive scheme. While the 2020 team was extreme, the offense was fantastic. I think that was much more player driven than schematic driven at that time.
Agreed.
And now you've got a scheme that kind of leans in and helps elevate the players around it, or the players executing it, which I think gives them kind of a better springboard with which to be successful. So I can get with that. I can get with that scene for Jamal Dean.
I think the could be part is kind of like, because there's so many players that it's like we don't know their potential just yet, where the 2020 team was certainly a great combination of older players, younger players, but also like immediate impact players as well. Like Tristan Wirfs and Anton Winfield Jr. were rookies, but their impact was felt almost immediately. The rest of the secondary were all on their first contracts, like whether it was Carlton, Jamel, or whatever the case may be, they were on their first, rookie deals and stuff like that. But then you look at the offensive side, and it's obviously Tom, who'd been around for, we know his career. Antonio Brown has been around the league for a long time. Gronk coming out of retirement and all that stuff. I do agree with you that it was so much more player driven. Can you imagine if Josh Grizzard or even like Liam Cohen was the offensive coordinator? What about this? What if we took Todd Bowles as the head coach of the 2020 team, but he gets Grizzard and or Cohen, but then you have Bruce Arians with this current team, but you have Byron Leftwich as the offensive coordinator? That'd be a crazy one as well.
Yeah, I'll take the 2020 squad with Cohen. Yeah, give me that. So that is so interesting. The one just kind of rolling with this, because we've heard it, and I can't remember exactly who said it. Maybe it was Mike Evans. I can't remember. Somebody said this wide receiver room is better, like the best they've ever been a part of. And I think it was Evans, right?
I thought Sterling Shepard kind of mentioned that. Now, that would be different because Sterling Shepard was with the Giants for a majority of his career.
Yeah, somebody had talked about like this being the best wide receiver room like in team history.
Evans did talk about that in the spring a little bit. Sorry to cut you off.
And but I mean, that is such high praise. I would have trouble agreeing with it because you just mentioned that was such an incredible group of talent in that 2020 season. Antonio Brown's talent is that of a Hall of Famer. Mike Evans is going to be a Hall of Famer. You have a younger version of Mike Evans, but to what we spoke about earlier, like they're rolling back the fountain of youth here. Chris Godwin was pre-injury. You had Gronkowski, who is still effective. That was such a phenomenal. I mean, even somebody like Cam Brate, like just red zone threat, just reliable.
Yeah.
It was such a great group of pass catchers, and they had some young guys in that year that really showed up. Scotty Miller, Tyler Johnson. And you think about that room, and while I have trouble agreeing with this room being as good as that one, the fact that claim can be made and it elicits a debate is such high praise for this group. It really is incredible that they've been able to continually keep this roster at such a high level. Now heading into the sixth year, specifically that room has continued to be pretty darn good, led by Evans and Godwin, and just continuing to keep that roster at such a high level.
Yeah, it's a fun off-season thing to kind of talk about, and even now too, when we kind of wait for the Titans to come into town and wait for the regular season to finally arrive. But it's good food for thought. And Jamal Dean had a great day with the 2 interceptions and a couple of pass breakups and stuff to see as well. You mentioned Jacob Parrish before too, as someone that has really stood out to you. He's getting some work with the ones as well. This dude seems to be everywhere. He's involved in certain plays. He's taking the ball away. He's having great matchups with with Shepard and even some of the starters and stuff like that. This guy just kind of seems like a jack of all trades type of cornerback, and the Bucs are using him as such.
Yeah, he's getting a lot of run as the starting nickel, a position he didn't play a ton at Kansas State. So for him, there's a bit of a learning curve coming in there, and he seems to be doing really well with it. The play down at the goal line was really impressive for him to kind of push through a bunch stack to make a pass breakup on that 2-point conversion play when they were doing those down at the goal line.
Yeah.
And, he's got a smaller frame, but he's so physically gifted and very athletic. That's really important for the position as offenses continue to evolve in the NFL, because I was just looking at this earlier today. Wide receiver screens are up 38% from 2019.
Wow.
And when you have so much behind the line stuff happening, whether it is running back screens or wide receiver screens or just wide zone, outside zone, it requires so much of that position because offenses are often in 11 personnel. They're even running out of 11 personnel more. That position has to be dialed in, not only in coverage, but also helping fit the run. And Payne Durham spoke about it when we talked to him earlier today. He had mentioned that, he was really impressed with some of these younger DBs. He had mentioned that one of them just came right up and fit the run really aggressively. And I think he was talking about Parrish when he said that. So it gives the team a lot of hope for that position. There's depth at nickel, if you think about it, because they have, if you include Parrish, 4 guys who they feel comfortable in that spot, including 3 former starters at that spot in Winfield, Tyke, and Isian, and now Parrish getting the run there as well, which is something that they struggled with last year was depth.
Yeah, it seems so different, like such a 180 now with like the secondary. It almost feels like, a strength at this point where, last year it was like, oh my goodness, like we're putting who out there? We're putting who to play, in the secondary and really important positions as well. So good on one for Todd Bowles, really getting his point across, because not that I don't think Jason Light would have been like, oh crap, he wants ball hawks. Like, okay, let's go get him ball hawks. Like, I think he still would have done that regardless, but kudos to Todd Bowles and Jason Light for really kind of revamping that whole room and kind of igniting a fire under this group that's been super, super aggressive throughout training camp. And it's been really cool to see some of the battles between the corners and the safeties and the wide receivers, running backs, and tight ends as well. And another thing that kind of stood out today, as Bailey Adams was talking about and wrote about in the Bucs Camp Insider today, which I'll put in the chat as well, is the battle for, one of the last spots at wide receiver. And we don't know if the Bucs are going to keep 5, 6, or 7. It's kind of tough right now to keep a lot when all of these players have been injured for quite a bit. Tez Johnson hasn't practiced in over a week. Cameron Johnson, it's been even longer than that. And Trey Palmer's been out too. Todd Bowles said this week that it looks like next week is probably going to be when these guys come back, which, it sucks. Cameron Johnson's in the same boat that he was in last year, which was, hey, he's electrifying when he's around, but he gets hurt and then he's not able to go. Trey Palmer, I thought was Tez Johnson, I thought was really off to a pretty damn good start as well in training camp. But if he can't be available, I'm not saying they're going to cut him or anything like that, but if he can't be available, they're not going to put him in a big role, whether it's kick return, punt return, or use him in some type of system and stuff like that. And Trey Palmer's kind of like on his last thread as well. What do you make of this wide receiver competition for couple of the last spots? Has there been anyone else that you saw today that maybe stood out to you a little bit more?
Yeah, Harris out of UCF. He made some pretty big catches yesterday. He continued, I think, with a pretty solid day today. He brings a body type that beyond Mike Evans, the team doesn't really have, which is just kind of that bigger body, downfield, vertical stretch X receiver that if Mike were to go down, you don't have somebody who's really Trey Palmer's the closest, right, to filling that role. The team's talked a lot about Buca being able to play all 3 positions. I think X is probably the least comfortable that he would be, or least effective he would be. So I think Harris showing up, and if he can continue that in training camp, he may be able to carve out a role. And it'd be interesting when they go to make some of those roster decisions, whether they want someone who is a little bit more traditionally like that X receiver, like that Mike Evans role. And maybe that's what forces Trey Palmer off the roster. So where I think what's interesting about these battles is you have a lot of players who definitely profile into a specific role. Like Cam Johnson isn't he isn't competing with Trey Palmer, in my opinion, is they just play two different roles, right? He's competing with Tez. And so it's really like these mini battles within the receiver room and who can kind of stand out there.
Interesting take for sure. Like, they're not. You're not going to have a huge, able-bodied guy and one of the smaller, quick twitch receivers. Like, yes, they are wide receivers, but they are playing such different roles. That's a Jacob Harris as well that Josh was talking about in terms of the body size type of Mike Evans. Gotta say, I'm kind of shocked that you mentioned a UCF player.
I know,
given your rivalry,
I know,
and your hatred specifically of Bailey Adams.
I hope this goes to my unbiased record.
Yes, very, very, very unbiased. And I think one way everybody should compliment and reward Josh for being so unbiased is by getting some tickets to USF football games this upcoming season. USF has been sponsoring all of our coverage over at Bucs training camp, and the season is just around the corner. 22 days away from watching the USF Bowls take place at Raymond James Stadium, where they will be hosting the Boise State and their blue field. The field will not be blue because it is over at Raymond James Stadium, but they're going to play some better teams this season, starting off with Boise State. The homecoming game also is on October 18th against FAU, the Owls, formerly where Lane Kiffin coached for, I think, just a season. But Lane Kiffin used to coach that team. And tickets are still on sale. You can get a couple remaining before the season gets going. So visit www.usfbowlstix.com. That's www.usfbowlstix.com. Remember, this is a team that is on the up and up. Coach Golish has them playing pretty well, especially towards the end of last season, winning a bowl game. And I think there's a lot of exciting stuff ahead for the USF Bulls. It was funny because Baker Mayfield, well, he's got nothing against the USF Bulls. He hates the Texas Longhorns. Yeah. And I believe the USF men's basketball team was out there the other day, so they took a picture. He had to go horns down. But Josh, your thoughts on USF football? What should fans expect for this season?
No, I think Golesh has done a wonderful job turning the program around. I'm really excited to see quarterback Byron Brown back. He had an injury that really kept him out of most of last season, and he stuck around for this year. So I'm excited to see what Golesh can do in year 3. He's gotten them to bowl games in each of the last 2 years, which is really, really nice. And he seems to be building a real program, and the recruiting is getting better. So I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, so make sure you check out some games if you love watching football and you want to support your local team and support Pewter Report. Check out some USF games this year. One more time, that is www.usfbowlstix.com. Tix.
Matt, there was one other receiver who I think had a really good day today. It slipped my mind initially, but Ryan Miller.
Yes.
Won vertically on a deep ball. I think it was from Kyle Trask, if I remember correctly. Had another pretty spectacular catch with Dean in coverage, where Dean actually got the initial pass breakup, and Miller's just concentration, he was able to still pull it down. I think it was ruled out of bounds as he was falling on his backside, but just the concentration to stick with the ball and complete the catch was pretty impressive. And he's one of those guys, like, you look at some of these other receivers and you may say they're more physically gifted, they're more athletic, there isn't really much that Ryan Miller doesn't do adequate or better. And then when you look at the complete picture, he does everything that's asked of him. He'll dig a guy out in the run game. He's downfield creating opportunities for other players. I think that's what made him a player that the team really liked as part of their depth last year. And I think it gives him an outside shot at still making the roster this year when they come down to it. He's just a guy you want on your team. He's for lack of a better term, and I think this one's really appropriate with him. He is a gamer.
I have kind of given the comparison, and I mean it in a complimentary type of way. And this for a couple of reasons, because there's been a couple of times where he's been absolutely shellacked at practice with big hits from defensive backs and defensive players. Ryan Miller is kind of like a cockroach. He will not die. He will just keep going and keep getting back up and keep making plays and find a way to be on this team. When you look at the talent of this wide receiver group, you never think of Ryan Miller. But then look what he did last year with given some more opportunities, scoring what should have been the game-tying or game-winning touchdown when the Bucs played against the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football last season. I think Ryan Miller is going to be on the practice squad of this team, and then you hope injuries don't happen. But the way the NFL works, hopefully it's especially not Mike Evans or Chris Godwin when Chris Godwin comes back. But I think like Ryan Miller is going to be called up for game days a couple of times. I just legitimately have that feeling. He is pretty reliable, again, as far as like 6th, 7th wide receivers go. He's willing to put it all out on the line. So I think that's a really great observation right there. Ryan Miller, a very fun wide receiver to watch, does a little bit of everything for this team. We got a couple of super chats to get to, so let's get it rocking and rolling. We'll start with Jordy Peterson. Thank you, Jordy, for this $4.99 super chat, who wants to know any update on how Servassier Dennis has been looking through training camp. Go Bucs. Well, he's getting a lot of reps as the number one inside linebacker. He's become the quarterback of the defense. And it's not like he's just doing it on his own, but he's doing a lot of these reps without Lavonte David next to him. Now, obviously, Lavonte David is the head honcho of this team, but the main goal for the Bucs and Lavonte David is get Lavonte ready and healthy and good to go for the start of the regular season. So he's getting a lot of vet days. He had 3 days off, then he came back yesterday, but he was off again today preparing for the joint training camp practice tomorrow. So Servassier Dennis is seeing a lot of things. He's looking at the offense in many different ways. There haven't been the interceptions and things like that from Servassier Dennis, but I think that's because they aren't really throwing his way. He's been covering tight ends pretty well. He had some great reps the other day. It was just one-on-one linebacker against running backs, and he shut down Sean Tucker like it was nobody's business. I have pretty high expectations for Servassier Dennis this season if he can stay healthy, and that's still something that I think about all the time. He's got to be able to stay healthy. He did speak the other day, and he said his shoulder's better than it's been in 2 seasons now, and that's really a fantastic thing to hear. But Servassier Dennis is not going to be a secret weapon by any means, but I think he could really boost up the defense this year, having a very capable inside linebacker to go with Lavonte David. But Josh, tell me your thoughts about Servassier Dennis and where you're at with him going into this year.
Yeah, I'm buying the hype. And I think that that's one big thing that we is the team continues to be effusive in their praise of him. I think Jason Light spoke about it a little bit yesterday when we spoke with him, that they are extremely high on him. Payne Durham spoke about him, just saying that, the speed, the ability to cover Payne and other tight ends was really has kind of jumped out to him. When watching him today and yesterday, what I was really encouraged by was just him using his football IQ, and he was oftentimes getting to spots, especially when the Bucs were working like screens or working, say, outside zone or mid zone stuff to getting horizontal. He was often beating linemen to their spots and cutting off the run at the front end. So I think that was all really, really positive. And then I was talking with Ollie Connolly about this, just where the linebacker position is in the NFL right now. There are very few real quality linebackers in the NFL at the moment. It's a position that's continually picked on. And so one of the better strategies that teams have employed is you draft a guy on day 3 who's got some physical traits, and you hope to develop them. And by year 3, they turn into something. Jamian Sherwood for the Jets was, I think, a great example of that over the last couple of seasons. Well, Dennis was a day 3 pick. He's got physical traits. The team has been really, really high on his ability to process and in coverage. And this is year 3 for him. So I think the health is obviously the real wild card with him. But if he can stay healthy, I think he can be very much in that archetype of somebody that the team stashed, developed. And as he nears the end of his rookie contract, he's going to develop into a decent to quality starting linebacker in the NFL.
Yeah, and the Bucs still have a little bit of time to see what he can be as a Buccaneers linebacker. This is a very interesting question from Carlos Farley. Thank you, Carlos, for this $5 super chat. Certainly want your input on this as well, Josh, who says, Matt, if you had to pick a 4x100 relay team from current Bucs, which 5 would you pick, and who is running the anchor leg? So this is like the Olympics when you got the baton and you got to pass it to the next person. Oh, man. Okay. So current team. My immediate thought, again, if we're talking speedsters, I was thinking Tez Johnson. I think he's got to be on there. I feel like Sean Tucker's got to be on there too. I
like Tucker. Yeah.
Yeah. I go back to spring. And Todd Bowles, we asked him about like who was the fastest, whatever, and I think he said Jacob Parrish.
Yep. I was thinking about this. I love the explosivity of Parrish, and he would be somebody I would consider for the anchor. Yeah. Jamal Dean is somebody I would put on there. Dean I would put at the front. Like I would want him starting. This is a terrible, terrible thing. We were just talking about him getting the 2 picks. But since he doesn't do a great job over the course of his career holding on to the ball, I don't know how much I trust him receiving the baton.
Yeah.
I almost want to start him with it and say you just have to hand it off. Man. But that's me getting into the weeds.
But you also got to factor in Zion. Zion's one of the fastest corners.
See that, and I was thinking about him or Parrish as that as the anchor. Those were the 2 I personally was thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of weird. We're not talking about like any wide receivers really. I think Trey Palmer could be.
Palmer
on the list as well. I think okay. So, oh man, so Zion. I'm not doing the lineup yet, but Zion, Jamel, Jacob Parrish.
You mentioned Tez.
Okay, so Tez, Sean Tucker, and Tez, Sean Tucker, Zion, Dean, Palmer, Parrish. All right, so there's 6. There's got to be 1 to eliminate out of that.
So Tez to me feels like he's more of like shifty, quick, short area.
Right.
Whereas I think some of the other guys are more long speed.
I think that's fair. All right. So I'll eliminate Tez Johnson. I like your idea of Dean starting.
Okay.
I'll go Dean to Palmer.
I like it.
I think Parrish should be our anchor.
I like that. Okay. So I would say Palmer to Tucker.
Yeah, and then Zion.
Parrish.
1, 2, Tucker, Zion, and then Parrish.
Carlos, I hope you drop in the chat what your thoughts are on the lineup we created.
Yes. Yeah, so just one last time. So our 5 current Bucs on the current team for this 4x100, it will be Jamal Dean starting, giving the baton to Trey Palmer, who then hands it to Sean Tucker, who then gives it to Zion McCollum, and we finish off with Jacob Parrish. So there's your top 5 right there. Thank you for the question. I love these hypotheticals and different things like that. So definitely appreciate that. The next super chat, Marshall Walker, thank you very much. And also thank you for being a Pewter Report YouTube channel member and subscriber.
I I think Marshall dropped in the chat later. Did we get his question?
Yes. He said, did my super chat question come through? Rookie here. Yes, it did. Thank you very much for the super chat. If you have another comment, we will happily get to it. But yeah, thank you very much. Damn, I just saw it. Tyler Lavelle had one talking about Ryan Miller said he's a cockroach / Christmas tree. Yeah, because Scott yesterday was calling him the Christmas tree because he got lit up. But yeah, now I'm calling the cockroach. Let's go to this one. Tobias Stark says, sorry, is Miller a threat for Shepard's roster spot? So I've always thought about this, talking about Ryan Miller and Sterling Shepard. I've always felt that Sterling Shepard is destined for the practice squad strictly because, and I guess it's to his own fault a little bit, he doesn't want to play anywhere else. And I think he's like totally fine with just like retiring if that became the case. Like he'd rather just retire than play for anyone else other than Baker Mayfield and and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So because of that, the Bucs can say, all right, we'll keep Sterling Shepard on the practice squad, and therefore we can kind of expand our roster a little bit more. I don't see Shepard making the team, but I think Shepard and Miller are kind of both destined for that practice squad spot.
Yeah, so I think the other thing that plays into this is Sterling Shepard is a vested veteran. So if he is on the roster at the initial 53-man cut down, his salary becomes fully guaranteed for the year. And so that may be something that the team doesn't necessarily want to commit to.
Right.
And so there's a good chance, kind of thinking in line with you there, Matt, that he is initially put on the practice squad. He is given opportunities to, he'll have the 3 elevations through the first 3 weeks. But what I also think may happen is just after week 1, they then promote him to the 53-man roster in week 2, just to clear the vested veteran aspect of placing him on the roster.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the Bucs will certainly have a couple of options to really sift through. But there's no option when it comes to working with the best insurance people around. And that, of course, is Briar Greaves Insurance. If you're a longtime podcast listener, you probably remember the late, great Mark Cook talking about Briar Greaves Insurance. Pewter reports Scott Reynolds has been a Briar Greaves customer for years, and there simply is not a better insurance company in the Tampa Bay area. So visit BriarGreavesInsurance.com to see for yourself. Briar Greaves Insurance is family-owned, and their main goal is helping people. They want to help people find the right insurance policy for you and your family. So whether it's home or auto, boating insurance, or business insurance, turn to Briar Greaves and find out why their personal touch and customer service sets them apart. The days of waiting on hold to speak with an insurance representative that you don't even know are over. With Briar Greaves Insurance, you'll have a relationship with your agent who can answer your question and advise you on the best policies. As 2 recent hurricanes have shown all of us that live in the Tampa Bay area, there's a cost to living in paradise. Briar Greaves can help make sure you have the right hurricane and flood insurance to make sure you and your home are protected. Visit BriarGreavesInsurance.com today. That's Briar, B-R-I-E-R, Greaves, G-R-I-E-V-E-S. Call their office today at 813-876-4166. That's 813-876-4166. And tell them that Pewter Report sent you. Okay, we have gone long enough without talking about the quarterback position. Baker Mayfield. Everybody wants to know about Teddy Bridgewater as well. Love to tell you about Teddy Bridgewater. We did speak to him after practice today. Really thoughtful and insightful stuff. But he didn't really participate today. He warmed up with the quarterbacks, threw on air, threw some routes to the receivers, but did not practice in 11-on-11, didn't practice in goal line, 7-on-7s, and things like that. So doesn't look like Teddy Bridgewater is going to participate tomorrow against the Tennessee Titans. He still needs to get that grasp of the offense and everything like that. So I think more of next week after the first preseason game next week is probably when we're going to see more of Teddy Bridgewater. So we'll get back to Teddy Bridgewater in just a moment. But let's talk about Baker Mayfield, Josh. What'd you see from Baker Mayfield today and really over the last couple of days that you've been at practice?
Yeah, I think he's looked really sharp. I think that his chemistry with the receivers has been really good. He's been finding guys over the middle. I think the deep ball has looked really crisp, which is something that hasn't been at its best when you compare it to other seasons in his career during his time in Tampa Bay. So I think that he is ready to capitalize off of a career year from last year and ready to continue the offense on its upward trajectory.
I remember you did his projections a while ago. How much of like this run game factors into his stats going up or down this season?
I think it's a big part of it. I think that you're going to have a team that knows its running identity to start the season rather than figuring it out on the fly 5-6 weeks in. I think that that's going to be contributory to them passing potentially less. I think they're going to be leading late in games more. And a lot of people, I think when I originally put out those projections, they're like, you have him with throwing less touchdowns and you don't have many more touchdowns from the running backs. And if the offense isn't scoring as many points, how can you say they're leading late in games? It's the other side of the ball is I do see the defense being better this year, being able to protect leads a little bit better, keeping scoring on from the opposition down more. And so I just think that they're going to be running the ball in the fourth quarter more than they did last year, which will keep his counting stats down. But I think I noted when I created those projections that just from an efficiency standpoint, less turnovers, more yards per attempt, just that it would be a more successful season for Baker if you were to ask him at the end of the season, like, yeah, this actually worked better even if I threw for less yards, threw for less touchdowns.
Yeah, I also agree. I think it's more of a less is more situation for Baker Mayfield because there are times he can get in his own way. And, you could say that about a lot of quarterbacks, in this league as well. But all Baker cares about the most is winning football games. And for him, hopefully going and winning a Super Bowl as well. What about the absence of Tristan Wirfs? How does that impact Baker on this upcoming season?
I think that is going to be something that the team has to consciously game plan around. I think Charlie Heck in there for Wirfs, obviously you're talking about a downgrade. I don't think that that's going to insult anybody to say that.
Yeah.
I also think, I think it's going to limit the offense, both in terms of the run game as well as the pass game for the first few weeks. And that's not to say that it's going to be an extremely limited offense. Just there are some of their most creative things they're not going to be able to get to because Wirfs is just so good in space. He can be left on an island. I think you're going to see the tight ends lined up on the left side of the line more, which is something they did with Cade Otton last year when Wirfs went down for those couple of weeks in the middle of the season. You might see the backs held in to pass protect more than get out into the routes on third down than you normally would, which also may mean you see more Rashad White and less Bucky Irving than you expect to see in those first few weeks. So I don't think that is going to make it where the offense can't be effective. I do think that it is going to be, they're going to be very intentional about how they game plan, specifically with Heck in the lineup.
We got a comment from Marshall Walker who super chatted us before. So we'll get to your comment now. Thank you again for the super chat, for being a Pewter Report YouTube channel member. Says, do you think Tez and all the defensive rookies besides Washington going to be available for the Titans game? So I don't think Tez is going to be available for Saturday's game. He's not participating. They're not going to throw him in kind of last second. I don't think Emeka Egbuka is going to participate either because at this point he's a starter and a star on this team. There's really not going to be a ton of like defensive rookies playing because Benjamin Morrison, we'll see what happens with his hamstring injury, but I don't know if you're going to push him first preseason game with the hamstring injury. David Walker's obviously out for the whole season. That kind of leaves Jacob Parrish. We'll see all the undrafted free agents, stuff like that. I'm very excited about Nick Jackson, the Iowa inside linebacker. I think he's going to have a pretty good showing. But there's not going to be a ton of rookies in this game, just kind of based on either you're already a starter or kind of the injuries that have popped up lately.
Yeah, I think Parrish will get a little bit of run. I think Elijah Roberts will be one who does get to see the field a little bit.
He'll get a lot of time.
Abuka is interesting. I definitely see what you're saying, that he's kind of entrenched as a starter, but also with all the wide receiver injuries, I'm wondering if maybe he gets a drive or two just to start the game and to reduce the exposure of everyone else. And then, like you said, with Morrison, I think tomorrow will be very telling for that. But generally with a hamstring, they're going to be super cautious with that.
Yeah, and Todd Bowles has been kind of all over the place with how he's going to use starters and stuff like that. We're going to see a lot of the starters tomorrow against the Tennessee Titans, which will be very cool. I imagine we'll see Mike Evans suit up for that one and see how he looks. And we'll see this Bucs defense go up against Cam Ward, the number 1 overall pick. So, that's always a cool thing to see. But the fact that they also play the Buffalo Bills, so their preseason games are the Titans, they play the Steelers next week, and then the Bills, the third preseason game. But because they also play the Bills in the regular season, I think Todd Bowles is going to mix it up a little bit. And I think we're going to see a lot of starters actually playing the preseason game in week 2 versus week 3, which is, not how they've typically done it since they've cut out the fourth preseason game, and now there's only 3. So that's going to be interesting to see. But I don't know. Yeah, Ibuka, because of all the injuries, somebody has to play. But does somebody have to play just because it's a preseason game? I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out more tomorrow about that one. We have a comment from Meets McGee, who's now been a Pewter Report YouTube channel member for 7 months. Thank you so much for your support. Who says, the depth at cornerback. Would you entertain a trade of Jamal Dean? Josh, your thoughts on this one?
I would not.
Me neither.
I would keep Dean for one more season for a few different reasons. Cornerback's an extremely volatile position, both in terms of injury risk as well as just general play. It's much more up and down than some of the other positions in the NFL. So having more depth is a good idea from both perspectives. Also with Dean, I think you give him that opportunity. Right now, he's probably at his lowest value in terms of trade, coming off of his most injured season. So typically in that situation, what you're hoping to do is allow him to get out there, play this season, maybe improve his health status, just play more than he did last year. Then if you really like the development of Parrish and Morrison and Zion takes that next step, then you're prepared to trade him next year or next offseason before the last year of his contract. So you also have to realize, like, right now, a lot of teams have hit their spending thresholds for the season. So, Dean's, I think, due right around $13 million. So there are some teams that would say, we've hit our spending threshold. We are not in the market. So you want to include as many teams as you can in that potential trade. And that usually is best suited at the beginning of the offseason.
Yeah, I think the Bucs just, they put so much time and energy into like building out this depth at corner and at safety as well, but specifically at corner. Like, don't throw it all away. You wouldn't throw it all away, but don't throw some of it away already just by, trading Jamal Dean for whatever reason. And, what are you going to get in return for that trade? So, no, I think depth is more important than, whatever you're going to get in return for Jamal Dean. But, it's an interesting proposition anyway. We'll talk about Teddy Bridgewater to close out the show real quick, but also, if you are going to watch the Bucs on Saturday, if you're not going to the game, then go and watch it over at Walk-Ons. There's 3 in the Tampa Bay area, 1 in Lakeland, another in Wesley Chapel, and a third one that's 5 to 10 minutes away from Raymond James Stadium. They have great happy hour deals all the time, Monday through Thursday, including Tuesday all-day happy hour plus $5 Tito's. If you go today on Wednesday, it's from 3 to 6 and also 9 till close. So there's still some good time to go over to Walk-Ons. They got great deals for drinks and food as well. Domestic pints are $3.99. Got the Boom Boom Shrimp, the boneless wings. Can't go wrong over at Walk-Ons. So eat like a winner and drink like a champ over at Walk-Ons. So Teddy Bridgewater did not really practice today besides doing warm-ups and stuff like that. But he did speak after, and I found his press conference quite fascinating. He was very thoughtful with every response. They were very long answers, and I mean that in a good way, where he really had perspective of a lot of things. There's a lot going on with his being suspended from coaching his high school team, but he went into why he did the things that he did. I shouldn't even say why he did the things. Like, he just wanted to make sure that his players got home safely, because there are parts of Miami where that's quite dangerous. So he said, I didn't want them to walk home or something bad could happen. That's why he got them Ubers and stuff like that. He talked about how important fatherhood is for him, and he has 2 sons, and he looks at all the players that he has as, his other sons as well. And he said he's a protector and stuff like that too. So Josh, just want to get your thoughts about not just his press conference, but the Bucs move to sign him and bring him in, and what type of impact he could have.
I think the bringing in him as a veteran and somebody who has literally coached at a high school level.
Yeah.
He spoke about how that's impacted his ability to watch film as a quarterback. And I'm excited to see how he could impart that wisdom onto Kyle Trask, onto Michael Pratt, and even on Baker. Like, I think that there are going to be things that he'll be able to catch as somebody who has looked at that same film, not just from a specific position, but from somebody who's trying to coach up all positions, and be able to give some insights that maybe Baker didn't see, just looking at it from a traditional quarterback's perspective. So I'm really excited to see that. I also think that he has a relationship with Josh Grizzard from their time in Miami in 2022 together. And so I think that he can just be added to the chemistry of the room overall, just with that tie. And he spoke so much about the relationships that he has developed in this league, and how many of those relationships are with people on this Bucs team. I think he talked about Charlie Strong and many others. So I think that he's going to be a great addition to the culture and the locker room, which, as we all know, is a really important part of the team makeup from Jason Light straight on down. It is something that they value so much, and they put a huge emphasis on it. I think that he is going to be a great fit from that perspective as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I thought his press conference was very powerful today, like very eye-opening, between, again, all the things going on with him coaching a high school team to, throughout his career, as you mentioned, like the connections that he has with everyone. He went on to say that, he just wants to help the team in any way, because he got asked about, competing for QB2 with Kyle Trask, and, he just showed up. I like that he's also been preparing the whole time, because that's what I was curious about yesterday is he coming back because, well, I'm suspended, like I might as well go and play in the NFL.
The NFL as a backup plan is just still crazy to me.
Yeah. I agree. That is insane. But he said, no, the plan was to always keep playing if there was an opportunity. And now this opportunity came about. It just kind of coincided with what went on. But yeah, he said he's going to be an extra set of eyes for Baker Mayfield, certainly for Josh Grizzard as well. And he said he just wants to be a humble servant, and, for a game that he so deeply cares about so much. And we deeply care about our Pure Platinum members. So let's give a thank you to Scott Federico, Rachel Gordon, Noah Parr, Scotty J, Dave Anderson, Pizo 813, Ash Fishpool, Joel Elrican, Sam, John Dale Morris, Zach Brannikin, RP89, Connor for Reals, Kevin Thomas, Leighton Carter, The Guy is Gifted, Brandon Riley, Alec Bickler, Nick Dubuque, Zach Jarvis, Mario Thomas, Eric McMillan, and Dominic Tarantino. Thank you all so much for your support of pewterreport.com. We're going to have a Pewter Insider on Friday, the return of the Pewter Insider for Pewter Platinum and Premier members. I think we'll do that at 1:30 like we typically do. We're also going to have another Pewter Report podcast tomorrow. Big day. It's joint training camp practice between the Bucs and the Titans. Pewter Report will be on hand for it. Baker Mayfield talks tomorrow, so that will be fun. It's always fun when Baker gets to chat. I know he gave his opinion to Kay Adams about the smelling salts being banned, but curious if he'll get asked about that again tomorrow. And yeah, we'll recap everything from Bucs versus Titans in the joint training camp tomorrow at 4 p.m. So in the meantime, if you're not already doing so, please follow us on all of our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We are at Pewter Report. Our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment on that as well. We're already over 20,000 subscribers. Thank you very much. We're at 2,200 or 20,000. Made the same mistake Scott did yesterday. We're now at 20,200, which is really cool to see as we keep growing our YouTube channel. So thank you very much to everyone. That's going to do it for us on today's show. For Josh Capo, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.